Indonesia has two advantages. It has the largest population in Southeast Asia and the fourth most populous in the world. And most importantly, it has a population that will continue to be very youthful into the future, while the rest of East Asia and even Southeast Asia, such as Thailand and Singapore, will age and silver rather rapidly. And the reason why this is important because having an expanding working age population to the future is a very favorable condition for growth, with the caveats that you have enough investment to capitalize on this favorable demographic transition. And unfortunately, this potential for Indonesia has not been realized. Part of that reason is that it hasn't invested enough, and also it hasn't really used its inherent comparative advantage, which is labor, to then attract manufacturing and expand this sector as a source of growth for Indonesia. Similar to other countries in Southeast Asia, Indonesia has been very negatively impacted by COVID. Of course, there's the external, which is the collapse of tourism, and also exports. But as we know, the exports as a share of GDP for Indonesia is not massive. It is not a huge trader like other economies like Singapore and Vietnam and Thailand and Malaysia. And so the collapse of the external sector isn't really the key drag for COVID for Indonesia. The key reason is its own self-suppression to fight the virus. That in itself brought down the collapse of domestic demand. And also the fact that although it tried to support and offset this with fiscal stimulus and monetary policy, both of those factors are limited by the fact that it doesn't have enough funding space, and it doesn't want to ease so much that it scare off foreign investors. The answer for Indonesia in the longer term lies within itself and its inherent comparative advantage, and that is it needs to tap into its comparative advantage of this labor force that's only going to get larger. So that in itself is very attractive for investors starved of growth, looking for in markets such as Indonesia, and also beyond just so you're looking for growth, there's a search for diversification as well, particularly in Asia as people try to shift supply chains and diversify from this high dependency on China. And so therefore we think that the answer for Indonesia in terms of reform lies within itself, and that is to capture this via more trade liberalization policy, to more friendly FDI policy for sectors that it wants to develop, particularly in manufacturing. And all these areas should provide it with not just a stable source of funding, which is FDI can be much more stable than portfolio, but also the import of technology, know-how, the chance to tap into the global value chain, and an ability for Indonesians themselves to raise their income and create wealth, and that I think is the way for Indonesia to achieve its 7% growth when we exit out of COVID.